When application completion rates drop, something is off. Students aren't getting the support they need, and that's affecting your numbers. Enter Element 451's AI assistants. They step in where students struggle, offering real-time answers and advice, guiding them through every step. Learn how AI assistants can boost your enrollment outcomes. Visit element451.com/AI team to learn more.
Just give them options. I think nowadays, regardless, they're adults, right? They're becoming adults. They're 18 plus. Give them the option to see what they want to see instead of forcing them to go through the same mundane script that most universities are doing.
Welcome to Mission Admissions, a podcast that helps higher ed become better recruiters, communicators, marketers, and leaders. I'm your host, Jeremy Tiers, and every other week I'll share my candid conversations with industry leaders and difference makers from both inside and outside of higher ed. You'll walk away with advice, tips, and strategies to help you both professionally and personally. Mission Admissions is part of the Enrollify Network, a robust collection of podcasts designed to help higher ed professionals like you grow. Explore our other shows at enrollify.org or check out some of my personal favorites linked in the show notes below. Enrollify is made possible by Element 451, the leading AI-powered all-in-one student engagement platform, helping institutions create meaningful, personalized, and engaging interactions with students. You can learn more at element451.com. Hey everybody, it's Jeremy Tiers, and I want to welcome you to the start of Season 4 of the Mission Admissions podcast. This is episode number 50, and my guest today has one of, I think, the coolest stories you've probably never heard. In 2005, Pasquale Romano Jr. moved to Las Vegas and became a porter, which essentially is someone who takes out the garbage at hotels and casinos. And as he told me the story when we met, he saw guys in suits walking around at the Palms Casino, and that kind of motivated him to want to move up the ladder, and he eventually became the director of VIP services. After 3 years of doing that, he moved over to Caesars Entertainment in Las Vegas and spent 6 years as their vice president of hospitality VIP marketing and lifestyle VIP services. And at one point, Las Vegas Weekly actually voted Pasquale number 8 of the 53 things that Las Vegas should actually be thankful for. And then, like many during the pandemic, Pasquale decided to change careers, but he hasn't left the hospitality and customer experience world. Instead, he's working as an advisor for a company called UrVenue, which is the leading hospitality technology solution that works with well-known hospitality brands like the Tao Group, Groot Hospitality, and Wynn Nightlife. So welcome to the show, my friend.
Thank you so much for having me. That was I wasn't expecting that intro, man. That was a great intro. Thank you. I'm very humbled.
Well, I think you have a pretty cool story, as I said, and there's a lot of people with cool stories. But at the end of the day, right, you and I were talking before we jumped in here, so much of just the customer experience these days is how do you differentiate yourself in most marketplaces which are crowded. So here's where I'd love to start today. What do you think is the most underrated aspect of customer service? What is it?
The one thing I think that's that's a great question. I think it's the follow-up. So people in hospitality, I'm going to speak to hospitality. Obviously, there's other business verticals that require customer service, but in hospitality specifically, it's the follow-up. And that comes with authenticity and a little bit of effort. And, you can smile every day and greet guests and do all those fun things and things that are expected of you. But the follow-up is the most important. Following up, say, how was your experience last night or yesterday? Or was everything good? Or wishing them a simple happy birthday or just checking in on life and building that relationship. That to me is the most underrated component, is the follow-up. As easy as it sounds, a lot of people do not do it.
And so when it comes to follow-up, is it as simple as you said, just doing an email, doing a text message, depending obviously on, the relationship you have or haven't built? Or do you feel like it's surveys? Do you feel like it's a combination of all those three? Like, how can follow up be done, not just as a way to try to get feedback on their experience, but also to try to get obviously feedback that's going to help you cumulatively over time figure out what you might need to fix or change or tweak?
Yeah, well, Jeremy, you're right. It's a combination of all those things. So it comes from the business level of making sure they have the proper tools in place to survey these customers so they can continue to enhance the experience as they move forward. But from an individual level, like whether you're talking sales, VIP hosts, concierge, anybody customer service related, you got to rely on those surveys, but you need to follow up. You need to build that relationship, and that comes with trust and just, I mean, I can't tell you how many times in Vegas during my times at the Palms, like, as time went on, other concepts began to become better, more new, the new shiny toy. Another word that's also important is empathy. And caring about what you're doing and caring about the people you're helping. I mean, if you truly want to make a difference and help people succeed and find their path in whatever business you're doing, I think leading with empathy is another important factor to this. I truly believe you have to care and have empathy towards the people you're communicating with. So I think empathy is a big part of that.
Why do you think empathy is so hard for so many people, Pasquale?
That's a good, oh man. And this is where that you got me stumped there because my brain is wired differently. Like I don't understand. Because we're human beings, we need that interaction. We seek that love. Like we want to help people. We want to be helped. Most of us. So I do think it comes with humility. I think sometimes people struggle with humility. They get success a little quicker than others, and then they lose that sight of what empathy is, and then they get to their head. I've seen that firsthand, where you've had bosses that when they're almost like dictators in a way. They're telling you what to do, but it's like you don't really want to go to battle with them. And then there's other bosses that when they discipline you, you almost feel bad. You're like, man, I let that person down because they truly care about you. That's a tough one, Jeremy.
Let's talk a lot about the customer experience, right? Because we know, especially with young people, Gen Z, Gen Alpha, which is your kids and that whole group coming behind Gen Z, the experience is so important. And I feel like satisfaction, Pasquale, that's kind of like the baseline in 2024. It's not just cool. Is it a okay experience? So in any competitive industry, higher education, obviously, just like Vegas nightlife or just like, all these hospitality verticals, super competitive. How do you differentiate yourself and create what I would call are like these unforgettable, memorable experiences? I mean, I have to believe you had discussions like that and you're probably still having discussions like that. So like any initial thoughts or just things that you're like, hey, this is the kind of stuff you should be thinking about if you truly want to separate yourself in a crowded industry.
So from 2005 till today, that has changed tremendously with technology. Obviously, when I first started, people were a little bit more patient. They would wait for you to call them back, etc. Now we live in the instant book world, right? Amazon may have ruined it for everybody, right? We want our packages today. Same thing with experiences. It's like if you call to book a reservation at a restaurant and they don't answer, you're going on to the next. And it's almost like whoever answers first is probably going to get your business. So that's really the challenge, is leveraging that technology. And it's funny because the company I work for focuses on that, right? Focuses on the commerce component, improving the guest journey when they go onto your website or when they're looking to book an experience. Make it easy for them. Create that itinerary builder, that shopping cart. And then you still have to eventually follow up and use that human to human interaction.
Pasquale, what about the employee experience? Because I don't think it gets enough attention. And I would argue without a good employee experience, it's really, really hard for your team then to go deliver and exceed expectations. Like just
Yeah, it starts at the top. First, you have to have good leadership. You have to have leadership that is actually bought into the company, who believes in what they're doing. It starts at the top, right? It's a trickle down effect. So leadership is important and key. So we get that, and it goes back to that word empathy earlier. Leading with empathy, caring. Don't always talk about numbers. That frustrates me whenever you have your one-on-ones with your team leader, and they want to talk about what are you closing, what are you selling, what are you doing next. It's like sometimes just have a human interaction. Just see how their well-being is. Are you happy? Is there anything you can give me feedback-wise that we could potentially do better? Is everything good in your personal life? Like, how are you feeling? Like, what can we do to support you? It's not always just about the business. It needs to be a full circle of everything. That's how I lead. And I think a lot of leaders should lead that way. So I think it starts there.
Think about when you started, even in those early years at the Palms, and then towards the end, right, 2018, 2019, 2020, when you were working alongside, because I'm guessing a lot of your team was, potentially in many cases younger than you, right?
Yep.
Did you see any shifts just in, again, if we're talking about the employee experience, just what they wanted out of an experience like that from like those early years to those later years? Is there anything come to mind and pop?
Yeah. Actually, the biggest thing that I've always come across, even when I had worked for people, when I ended up taking over my department, and what I ended up noticing was micromanagement. Nobody ever wanted to be micromanaged. That was the biggest thing I started to really see quickly, and that didn't change from 2005 to 2020 to even today. So I would say micromanagement was a big thing to help with employee happiness, honestly, because if you're being micromanaged all the time and hounded on, it's not a fun environment to be a part of.
So think back to all of these big events that you helped put on or you
Yeah.
helped lead a team who put on. One of the challenges in higher ed Pasquale is we try to get students and their families to visit college campuses, right? Like, come see what we've got to offer as you're going through your college search process. And then the show rate, for example, after somebody signs up, isn't necessarily as high as schools would like. Obviously, the post follow-up you talked about, but what on the front end, besides obviously the ease of the process, can help to either increase registration numbers or just increase the attendance and make sure that show rate for any event is a really nice high number?
So I'm thinking like, okay, universities, colleges, they're all different, they're all unique. But let's use a college that has a great sports foundation. It's like for these visitations, they should have a small section for visitors. I mean, send them to a game, let them experience the culture of the university from a sports perspective. Anything that is experience driven that university that may be known for, let them experience it firsthand. So, Jeremy, why don't they do this too? This would actually be a good idea. Why don't they create on their website for their visit, for their new potential students, create a guest portal, right? Create something in there that when they're looking for students and they're trying to sell them on their specific university or college, let them pick what they want to see through a itinerary, through a shopping cart. Five, like you have your five categories, okay? And in those categories, you have five things you can pick and let them dictate what they want to see, what really interests them. So it's like, hey, okay, you have a sporting event. You can go to this farmer's market that they do in October, or if you just want to see the classrooms, right? Okay, perfect. I want to go see the classrooms. Next, what's next? You want to go see the housing, the cafeteria. Just give them options. I think nowadays, regardless, they're adults, right? They're becoming adults. They're 18 plus. Give them the option to see what they want to see instead of forcing them to go through the same mundane script that most universities are doing.
A lot of schools push back and say, boy, logistically, that's going to be really, really hard, Pasquale, if we just let everybody customize their visit every which way. How would
Yeah.
you push back against something like that?
Well, first of all, I would say we got to customize it with parameters, right? There's got to be 4 to 5 options per category. Like you don't want them to just give a bunch of different options, right? That would be number one. Number two, I would be like, well, hey guys, like you're telling me that people aren't showing up, right? Like, and they're not showing up. So what's the solution to that, right? Like obviously what we're doing isn't working. So, I mean, I don't know how, I can't believe they would actually get pushback if they're having this no-show rate of people coming, or they're just not happy with their experience. Like, separate yourself. If all the universities are doing the same exact thing, create an experience for these potential new students. Give them the option. People love options. And let me go back to this, Jeremy, with UrVenue. We found out the statistics of our partners, their conversion rate for guests that book experiences, it's astonishing how much higher the booking percentage is when you give your customer the option.
Give us a story, something that just you all did or you helped your team do, Pasquale, that ultimately you think really just exceeded customer expectations at any point in your career? Hey, it's Jeremy Tiers. Element 451 is hosting the AI Engage Summit on October 29th and 30th. This free virtual event features many of your favorite Enrollify creators and will explore AI's impact on student engagement, enrollment marketing, and institutional success. Learn how to tap into the power of AI to turn data into actionable insights, utilize predictive analytics, and monitor and support student performance. Plus, you'll hear directly from current students on how AI is influencing their engagement in campus life. The AI Engage Summit is your guide to understanding and applying AI at your school. Registration is free, so visit element451.com to save your spot. Now, back to the show.
Yeah, well, we did an event at the Palms back in the day that was extremely successful. That was very risky, and a lot of work was involved. It was called the Midsummer Night's Dream. I don't know if you've ever attended that, but it was an incredible party that required packaging with hotel rooms, suites, plus the ticketing for the event, and then the reservations and the restaurant. Like there was all kinds of packages involved in that. That really gave people coming there an amazing experience. They were able to choose what package they want that came with X, Y, and Z. And again, it goes back to the choice. Like when we were giving everybody a choice on what they wanted to experience, it was pretty impressive to see the numbers we did for that event. It was a huge success for 4 years in a row until obviously the palm shifted and we all left and things changed. But it was an amazing event. I would say that event sticks out to me the most, just because of the creativity behind it and the performances, and I mean, so many moving parts.
So
And
how
it
do
just,
you, yeah, not to cut you off,
yeah,
but I love where you're going with that. So
yeah,
let's unpackage that. When you have so many moving parts, when you have so many other, in the example you just gave, offices and groups that you have to work with,
yeah.
where do you see that, gosh, if we don't do this part well, boy, it all falls apart no matter how many options we give, right, to the customer?
Great question. So the fun part is setting up the experiences and letting the customer choose. That's the fun and easy part, honestly. The hard part is executing. Going back to what you said, the training, right? How do we train our staff, or how do we spend money to have people give these tours? That is where it all can go crumbling down, is the operation. You need to make sure your doors are set up properly. You need to make sure everybody's checking in. Like, for example, that event, we had 4 different lines for all different experiences. Obviously, you had your VIP cabanas stage experience. You had your ticketing. You had your open bar. You had your specific guest list. Everything had their own avenue so that we can, get people moving and turning so they weren't waiting, and it was a seamless process. That's where it starts. And it goes back to the universities is, spend a little bit of money in training these individuals to facilitate and take ownership of these tours. That's where it starts, because they can pick their experience or what they want to see, what the university offers. But if they don't have something to facilitate that, then they're just going to be there walking around like a chicken with their head cut off, not knowing what they're looking for or what they're doing. And then the experience is going to be worse than it ever was. So that's where it starts.
So what made the collaboration in events like that then, to your point? All right, now
Yep.
everybody's like, cool, we're going towards the same mission. What
Yep.
was it that you can really speak to that made collaboration successful in your opinion?
Yeah, collaboration is currency. I love that. That's something I live by. So I would say it starts with the quarterback, whoever the quarterback's going to be, whoever's dictating what. Every single individual needs to know their role, and every team needs to know what their job is. And it starts from the top. You got to have somebody leading the train here, and that's where it starts. So if everybody sticks to their role and knows their game plan, just like sports, I love using sports as an analogy. If you know your plan and you stick to it, everything will work out. If you start to have people that are going to go rogue and lack humility and think that they know everything and try to take things head on without sticking to the plan, that's things can crumble. I've seen that happen so many times when there's lack of communication, specifically in the nightlife world. If somebody just seats a table without telling somebody that they sat that table because we're so busy and we're moving, and then next thing you know, we think at the front door that table's open, and now Jeremy checks in, I bring him up, I'm like, getting ready to have a great night with you. And then you're like, wait a minute, this table sat. That's the most embarrassing thing you can go through from a hospitality perspective. So that's I think it starts with a quarterback, and knowing your role is important.
On that note, I would be curious to know, what advice do you have for handling either situations like that occur, or I'll even call it just like negative or bad experiences that your customer has?
The recovery. Yeah, the recovery is extremely important. I think um, owning up to it is first and foremost. Never put the blame on the customer. Um, I don't like to say the customer is always right, because sometimes the customer isn't always right. But if you blatantly know you're making a mistake, it's simply owning up to it. Because I've been as proud as I am as my career, I've made a lot of mistakes, and I've always found that when I simply just be genuine and say, "Hey, I am so sorry. This is on me. Let me make it up to you." And then obviously provide them with a solution. If you have a solution in place, trust me that it will work. As long as you're straight up and you're honest and you just take ownership. People want accountability, right? Don't blame somebody else. Don't blame them. Just take ownership. Say, hey, I messed up. Let me make it up to you. This is what I got. Will this work for you? And more often than not, it does work out in great. And you can build a great relationship from that, because we're human. We're going to make mistakes, Jeremy. And people know that. As long as you're just empathetic about it, everything will be okay.
So, what did you all do, not just on the nightlife side, because I have to believe you understood what the casinos did, if you're able to share, from a survey or from a quality control slash follow up with the customer? What did you do that you actually found to be successful, meaning it actually got you feedback that was useful and helpful?
A lot of that really hasn't changed today. Questionnaires after their stay, whether it's via text, via email, people have no problem expressing their experience. I think that still to this day is because I'm dealing with a lot of major hotels and hospitality companies, and they still all do the same thing. I
Is it
think
open
having the
ended
proper
questions, Pasquale? Is it 1 through 5? Or like, what have you found to work best?
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Good question there. Yeah. So it is the standard open end questions have worked fantastic. And then obviously relying on your staff using the proper CRM, because now you take it to the next level, right? So they're going to answer the survey questions, which gets the ball rolling. But me as a former VIP host, you may fill out that questionnaire, Jeremy, but now I'm going to talk to you and say, let me know straight up, how was it? And you're going to give me the nitty gritty here. Now through my CRM, I'm going to take those notes. I'm going to say, hey, Jeremy loved this. Cocktail server disappeared, or they took too long to bring him his drinks. Blah blah blah. All that it's a collective effort by the staff, and then the technology you have in place. To be honest with you, they've all worked. I think surveys are important, but then also the individual, right? The follow up.
Marketing is also something I wanted to pick your brain on, because you've been, in a
Yep.
leadership role there. As you talk with just friends, or maybe it's in your current industry, Pasquale, what's something on the marketing side? Is there a trend you see, like, oh, in 2025, we're going to like start to see more of this, or I'm already seeing this now, that you think, boy,
Yep.
the marketplaces are going to have to adjust because of this, or this?
Yeah, I think the biggest thing right now is AI in the hospitality world. Scaling with AI, AI powered tools, and geofencing, which is something they would use, say, at Caesars Entertainment. They like to see where customers are spending the majority of their time based on their total rewards and how they sign up when they get to property. They can see where they're spending most of their time, so they can now market to that customer. And then obviously AI powered personalization will be at the forefront. I think marketers are going to start to use AI for things like customer behavior, understanding customer experience. And then I think more guest experiences is tailored experiences, going back to letting the university pick their options on how they want to experience the university. University also goes to hospitality. Like, here's a list of our experiences. What do you want to book? Here's the ancillary products on top of those experiences, XYZ, just giving customers the option. So I think AI and then guest experience, as far as making it easier for them to book, are the two things at the forefront from a marketing standpoint. I'll give you an example. There's the Fairmont Banff Springs in Fairmont. It's one of the major hotel brands under the Accor brand. It's a very luxury hotel. They're one of our partners at UrVenue. What they did was they wanted to do we created the guest portal for them, but they branded what they call Fairmont's My Experiences. And this property has over 150 unique experiences. It's a massive property. Some are free, some are paid. Well, what they wanted to do was 30 days before the guest arrival, they wanted to send a customizable email that says My Experiences to entice customers to pre-book their reservations. They saw almost a 55 to 60% increase in reservations by simply doing that. Where before the customer would have to call and find out, or they would wait a couple days before and things would be either sold out or harder to get into or day of. Now they're enticing customers to book ahead of time, and they saw a major increase in success in that just by doing that.
And to be clear, you're saying obviously these are our customers that had already signed up to come to the hotel, but it was like, what are we going to do when we're there? And instead of waiting until a day or two before and them having to call as the customer, you're saying it's being proactive and giving them options, back to options, even basics like that, because so many places aren't doing it or aren't doing it well, helps you continue to stand out.
Yeah, Jeremy, we want options, man. I think all of us want options, right? That's why we love Amazon. That's why we, whether it's, I just went from iPhone to Samsung. Big deal. That was a big deal for me, but it was an option, right? I looked at all my options and then I went with what was best for me. I think if you give people options from a customer standpoint, customer experience standpoint, you're going to see success. And I think that goes with the universities too, especially if they're having struggling with issues to get their potential future students to come just visit. You gotta better the experience from a pre-booking standpoint. Let them know what options they have and what they want to see. Because maybe something's important to me that might not be important to you, Jeremy. Like maybe I want to see the sporting facilities, but maybe you want to see the arts facility.
How often, if you're able to share, did, for example, a big conglomerate like Caesars constantly be auditing the customer experience? I mean, I gotta believe it wasn't like we're gonna do this survey and we're gonna keep doing it for like a year and then we'll what did that, again, if you're able to share when it comes to auditing and then saying, all right, how do we actually take it and make it actionable feedback, not just once a year, thoughts?
Caesars is one of the most analytical companies on the planet when it comes to hospitality. They taught me a lot from an analytical standpoint. It's a blessing and a curse. They audit constantly. It's all about the numbers and the data. But on the flip side, I always like to push back a little bit because, especially in hospitality, it's also a human element. There's also a feeling behind it. The numbers don't always tell the perfect picture, but they're extremely important. So they do audit a lot. It was constant. It was biweekly, monthly, and quarterly. We were talking about, customer surveys, statistics, foot traffic, bookings, holidays, year over year over year. It's incredible the amount of effort they put behind the analytics to understand the customer.
I end every podcast with something I call fun rapid fire. So I'm just going to give you a handful of things and I want some quick feedback for you on each one. Okay.
Yeah.
All right. I know you're a coffee guy like me. Best coffee out there. What is it?
Mom and pop shops. I don't do the Starbucks and the big ones. I go to mom and pop.
Okay. If you had a walkout song, what would it be?
Eminem, Till I Collapse.
Most important skill to have as a parent with young kids, because I know you have 2 young kids.
Ooh, okay. I'm going to say it because I'm speaking on their 2 and 1. So I'm in the beginning phases. Right now, patience.
Favorite book you've read in the last year?
This is Your Next 5 Moves by Patrick Bet-David. This would be the one this year. I love this book. I just finished it. Incredible. It's right on my, and then this one, guys, this one here, How to Win Friends and Influence People. I can't tell you how many times I read this.
Yeah, Dale Carnegie book. Absolutely great book.
Yeah.
Best city in Italy to visit if it's your first time?
Naples. That's where my family's from.
Okay. And the last one, how many games will the Pittsburgh Steelers win this year? You're going to be on the record.
10.
I'm going to go under.
It's possible. Well, Jeremy, you know how football is, man. It's there's a lot of luck involved here. If they stay healthy, I'm going to say 10. But if key players start getting hurt, that's going to change pretty quickly.
I agree. Pasquale and I text each other throughout the year. He's a big Steelers fan. I'm a big Vikings fan. And both of our teams hopefully will overperform this year. My friend, I appreciate you being on today and giving some things that I think are going to help our listeners and viewers. And I just wish you all the best until the next time we connect. Mission Admissions is part of the Enrollify Podcast Network. If you like this podcast, chances are you'll like other Enrollify shows too. Our podcast network is growing by the month, and we've got a number of marketing, enrollment, and higher ed technology shows that are jam-packed with stories, ideas, and frameworks, all designed to empower you to be a better higher ed professional. Our shows help higher ed marketers and admission professionals find their next big idea and feature a selection of the industry's best as your hosts. Learn from Jamie Hunt, Allison Tercio, Day Cabilds, and so many other amazing leaders in the higher ed space. Enrollify is made possible by Element 451, the leading AI-powered all-in-one student engagement platform, helping institutions create more meaningful, personalized, and engaging interactions with students. You can learn more at element451.com.